Welcome to Ellis Island. Between 1892 and 1954, more than 12 million immigrants made their first stop in America at the Ellis Island Immigration Station. In fact, more than 40% of Americans can trace their family history back through Ellis Island. Most of the immigrants who came to America through Ellis Island were from Eastern and Southern Europe. In many cases, they came to escape the poverty and religious intolerance of their native lands. Their journeys began to America on foot, horseback, or train. Many trekked hundreds of miles across Europe to get to a seaport. When they arrived at the coast, they boarded a steamship. The trip across the Atlantic Ocean lasted 1 to 2 weeks. As many as 3,000 people crowded into the ships. Arriving on the coast of America, one of the first things immigrants saw was the Statue of Liberty, which has stood in its own island in the harbor since 1886. People would cheer when they spotted this famous symbol of America. Some would weep with joy as the ship passed by it. First and second class passengers usually never even stepped foot on Ellis Island and were taken to New York City promptly. But third class passengers often would wait for hours or days on their cross-Atlantic ship until a smaller ferry boat took them to Ellis Island for immigration processing. Once on Ellis Island, uniformed officers greeted the ferry boat and passed out numbered identity tags. The people who did not speak English were often unsure what the officers were saying. The commotion was overwhelming. Men, women, and children struggled off the boat, carrying trunks, cloth sacks, and suitcases. They followed one another along a path and entered the imposing red brick building. Wearing their numbered tags, the immigrants had to endure long medical and legal inspections. The registry room, which was nicknamed the Great Hall because of its size, is the place where the majority of these inspections were conducted. First was the medical exam. It consisted of a 6-second medical test and other basic observations by a medical examiner. If someone was considered a risk to the public health, his or her clothes were marked by a piece of chalk with an identifying letter. Immigrants who were marked were taken out of line and kept for further examination. Immigrants who passed the 6-second exam continued through the maze of metal rails towards the far end of the hall for the legal inspection. During the legal inspection, officers looked at the ship's manifest and the list of names of the passengers on board each arriving steamship. This had the name and the description of each passenger. Officials asked each immigrant a set of 29 questions through the help of an interpreter. Some of these questions included: where were you born? Are you married? What is your occupation? Have you ever been convicted of a crime? How much money do you have? What is your destination? An immigrant could be detained for further inquiry if his or her answers differed from the answers listed on the manifest. Officials in the Great Hall held a great amount of power because they could ultimately decide whether each person could enter the country right away or whether that person's case required further review. People detained for either medical or legal reasons could find themselves staying in a dormitory, or worse yet, quarantined for months on end, only to finally be sent back to their country of origin. For most people, Ellis Island was the Isle of Hope, but for the unfortunate few who failed the health or legal inspections, it was the Isle of Tears. The lucky that passed the medical and legal inspections found themselves arriving at the top of another staircase at the other end of the Great Hall. This staircase had 3 aisles. People who were traveling west or south walked down the right side of the staircase. Those going to New York City or to the north walked down the left side. At the bottom of the stairs was a post office, a ticketing office for the railways, and a social worker to help the immigrants who needed assistance. There was also an office to exchange money from their home country for U.S. dollars. No matter where they were going after Ellis Island, immigrants needed money. An area on the first floor of the building became known as the Kissing Point. It got that nickname because it is where family and friends waited for their loved ones. After months or years apart, they kissed and hugged and shouted with joy and relief. For the immigrants, the long journey was finally over. They were in America.
Created using Powtoon.